by chance, while wandering all over the universe. Cha and Deva Rishi, the supreme saintly person amongst the demigods. Bhagavan, the most powerful. Tatra, there, where the two sons of Kuvera were enjoying life. Kaurava, O Maharaja Pariksit, Apashat, when he saw Naradaha, the great saint, Deval, of the two boys of the demigods, Jibhano, with eyes maddened by intoxication. Samabhuyata, he could understand their position. So, translation. O Maharaja Pariksit, by some auspicious opportunity for the two boys, the great Saint Devarshi Narada once appeared there by chance. Seeing them intoxicated with rolling eyes, he could understand their situation. You can repeat, O Maharaja Pariksit, by some auspicious opportunity for the two boys, the great Saint Devarshi Narada once appeared there by chance. Seeing them intoxicated with rolling eyes, he could understand their situation. So purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is said, Saru Sangha, Sarva Shastre Koi. Lavamatra Sadhu Sange, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. It's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22:54. Wherever Narada Muni goes, any moment at which he appears is understood to be extremely auspicious. It is also said, Ramanda, Ramite Kunda Ji Guru Krishna Prasade Poi Bhakti Lata Beach. According to their karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary systems, and some are going down into the lower planetary systems. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. That's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 19, chapter text 151. Narada appeared in the garden to give the two sons of Kuvera the seed of devotional service, even though they were intoxicated. Saintly persons know how to bestow mercy upon the fallen souls. So again, Yadrchya Cha Devarshir Bhagavan Statra Kaurava Apashan Narado Deva Shivhana Samapudhyata Samagana Tridandasha Gananjana Shlakya Chakshur and Vintam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. So, hearing this story, before we get into the philosophical aspects of the story, it reminds me very much of Srila Prabhupada's going to this nudist colony to preach Krishna consciousness. And there were, actually, nudist colony means people were running around in their birthday suits. If you don't know what that is, get someone to translate it for you later on. So, and there was one particular individual who was living naked in a tree. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. In a tree, which is actually interesting. And that particular individual became one of our leaders in the Krishna consciousness movement. And I think some of the other devotees, I think it was the Lone Star or something Star Ranch.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, something Star.
There are other devotees there.
Yeah, there are.
Initiated devotees, a number.
Yeah. There are a number of devotees who came from that. So it very much reminds me of this particular circumstance. I mean, I'm certain that many of the people at that particular ranch were actually intoxicated too. And we can compare it to Narada Muni, who was getting ready to actually curse these persons. And his curse, of course, was for the benefit of Manigriva and Nalagriva. But Prabhupada didn't really curse them. Prabhupada brought them back to Krishna consciousness. Very, very interesting. So this proves the point of the first verse that Prabhupada quotes. Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi. Boy, then one has a little moment's association with a pure devotee, then all of his life becomes very fortunate. There's a moment, and of course there's another verse in the Bhagavatam, what is it, Swardunya Po, or Sevaya, that one moment of association with a pure devotee is more valuable than repeated bathings in the Ganges River. It's interesting too, because these two personalities were bathing in the Ganges River. And they got more benefit out of associating with Narada Muni. So, very, very interesting. And of course, my own experience was like that too. That, and I'm sure many of you heard the story, that I was listening to the radio, just minding my own business, listening, I guess, to some, I don't know what music I was listening to. It certainly wasn't the Beatles. It was probably some folk songs. And then all of a sudden, they played Prabhupada's Happening album on the radio, and as soon as I heard it, I lost all interest in all of my material pursuits, at least most of my material pursuits. I can't say all my material pursuits. And I actually basically had a hard time concentrating on my studies and everything like that, and then eventually it led to me joining the Krishna consciousness movement, devoting myself full time to the service of Srila Prabhupada. So there's many examples of that. But one thing I wanted to talk about was in regard to the second verse that Prabhupada quotes, Brahmanda Ramate Kona Bodhuram Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Bhakti Lata that, of course, this verse is a common verse that Prabhupada would quote quite often, that the living entity is wandering everywhere according to his karma, taking one birth here, another birth there, animal birth here, a plant birth there, and eventually a human birth. And of course, the human birth is most appropriate for taking up Krishna consciousness. Durlabham manasa janma paratharubam arthadam. Because you don't find many animals able to discuss philosophy. At least I haven't come across too many animals able to control their senses and discuss philosophy. Although animals do not accrue karma, because they don't have the ability to discriminate, nor do little children accrue karma, real little children, little babies, because they don't have the ability to discriminate. So, depending upon a living entity's ability to discriminate, therefore there's either no reaction, or a light reaction, or a heavy reaction. We mentioned this yesterday, that for a Brahmin there's actually heavier reactions because he has more knowledge. With great knowledge, there's more responsibility. Whereas, like Gopal likes to say, with great power there's great responsibility, referring to one of his superheroes that he likes. So anyway, the point that I'm going to deal with right now is something that's sometimes called causeless mercy, which is an interesting statement, or by chance, as Prabhupada, auspicious opportunity, by chance, causeless mercy, is by the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. So we're going to discuss whether or not this is simply by accident, or there's some reason why that particular individual gets the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So sometimes we think, when we hear the word causes mercy, which Prabhupada uses quite a bit, and it's all over the Bhagavad Gita, that means There's no reason for someone coming in contact with a pure devotee. Just, there's no cause. But actually, I'm going to define what Prabhupada means by causeless mercy, hopefully. Causeless mercy means that Krishna gives us mercy, but there's no reason for him to do that other than the mercy himself, his compassion itself. Like when I give something to someone, I mean, hopefully I do causeless mercy, but anyway, when I give someone to something to someone, let's say I go to Walmart and I buy something. That's not really causeless. There's a cause because I want something in exchange, right? So when Krishna gives something, what does he want in exchange? He doesn't need anything in exchange. I mean, Krishna has all the Teslas there are in the spiritual world. Krishna has all... What's that Freudian stuff? Anyway, so Krishna has all the Lakshmis in the spiritual world. I mean, what does he need?
Devotional service.
Yeah. I mean, Krishna needs... Well, he wants your love. It's not a question of a need. It's he wants your love. So this causeless. That's what Prabhupada means by causeless mercy. And the pure devotee also. Because there's no cause for his mercy. It's not that he's being merciful to you because he wants someone else to iron his clothes. Something like that, yeah. Isn't that, there's other Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was actually initiating disciples because he just loved the dakshina that came from the disciples. Dakshina, of course, means donations, So many disciples do I have today, so many more. And actually, if one accepts disciples for his own profit, adoration, distinction, then the person will fall down for devotional service. That's why one of the instructions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave Rupa Goswami insofar as including the nectar of devotion was one should not accept many disciples. Just be anxious to accept many disciples, or should not be anxious to read many books. One should become expert or at least proficient in a few books, but not like thousands of books. I mean, sometimes I look at all the books of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and think, how am I ever going to read them all and be able to explain them all to all the devotees and impress them all? So, so the mercy of a devotee, a pure devotee, is also causeless. But there is some reason why a particular individual got that mercy, or why the pure devotee or Krishna shows up at that particular time. It's not that Narada Muni just was wandering. I mean, he was wandering actually, but it's not that he's just wandering hither and thither, just flipping a coin, quantum uncertainty, flipping a coin. Where should I go today? Well, be good to see the Mandakini Gandhis. That there's a nudist colony down there. Might be some cool cats who could take up devotional service. Some hippies or something. Of course, Mani Griganayas were better with the original hippies. At the rock and roll concert. Chris Supreme went to that rock and roll concert, isn't it? Not, don't you remember? Woodstock. Yeah, she was there. I mean, it's just like that. This is just like Woodstock, basically, we're talking about here. Of course, not with a whole band, so with a lot of people, just 4 people, Mani Griganayas, Kuvera, and some of the beautiful girls from the Heavenly Planets. So it's not that Narada Muni just like by chance. He was directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because nothing happens by chance. Everything is under the direction of the Lord. Sometimes we hear, not a blade of grass moves without the approval of the will of the Supreme Personality. We've got to got it. And in the Bhagavad Gita we have Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Videsha Arjuna, isn't it? That the Supreme Lord, or Videsha Arjuna Tishti, Ramayam Sarva Bhutanam, Yantra Bhutani. So the Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, and he's directing the wanderings of the living entities since time immemorial. And of course, directing the wanderings means if one really wants to be in big Maya, Krishna gives the intelligence to be in big Maya. Matat smritir, jnanam apohanam cha, gives you intelligence, remembrance, and forgetfulness. I want to be in Maya. That's the secret. And if you have good karma, he gives you the facility to be in Maya a sophisticated way. And if you have bad karma, he gives you facility to be in Maya a gross way. You understand? You know, I mean, the typical example is, let's say, one really wants to enjoy sex life, and he has good karma. Okay, he gets to be president of the United States. I'm sorry about that. So he gets to be. That's deliberate slips. These are not accident. He gets to be a rich man and has all these girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. Boyfriends, girlfriends. It's all scratching the same itch. Anyway, and so if he has good karma, and then Krishna directs him. Okay, invest in the stock market, or Krishna allows him to inherit a lot of money, like that. Or if he has bad karma, then all right, become a pity and enjoy romantic affairs. Even better than a rich man. So anyway, Krishna is directing the wanderings of the living entities. And what to speak of Krishna directing the wanderings of Narada Muni, right? Like Krishna is basically directing Narada Muni through his intelligence, so directly talking to him, because a pure devotee directly can converse with God, and saying, there's these two rascals, Manigriva and Nalakuvara, who were there in Woodstock. No, who were there in the Mandakini Ganges. Always pronounce it wrong, the Mandakini Ganges. And they're ready for Krishna consciousness. They're ripe. But you got to really give them a little tough love in the meantime. Tough love means cursing. So Krishna is also directing how Narada should preach to them, which is interesting. It's not only go there, but what you should say. Because like Prabhupada went to the nudist colony, he didn't curse, he said. He was disgusted with them. But he didn't say out loud in front of everybody, this is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. Just like one time I went to a Rainbow Festival, and it was like that. It was like a nudist colony on steroids. And I just, yuck. I took Gopal with me, and we just ran away. One day I thought, this would be good preaching. I said, I can't tell. I wasn't as tolerant as Prabhupada, so I just ran away from it. So Krishna was directing Prabhupada, Krishna was directing Narada how to interact. Other times Narada may interact in a different way, like with Magrari the hunter. I mean, there's a case where someone would think, how can this hunter ever take up devotional service? He's not a good candidate. Spend your time with someone who's a little bit more favorable. Actually, sometimes we think that someone who's partially into spiritual life is more favorable than someone who is just like a gross gross pig. I'm someone who was a gross whatever, meat eater or something like that. Sometimes we think like that. But actually, sometimes, or many times, the person who is just like really gross and has his nose in the stool is a more favorable candidate than someone who is chanting Om all the time. Because someone whose nose in the stool, literally, figuratively, that person doesn't know anything about spiritual life, and it's easier to teach him, At least he's humble, What do you know about spiritual life? Nothing. Okay, let me teach you. And someone who is already thinks they know something. What do you know about spiritual life? I know everything. I read Bhagavad Gita. Right, and like I said, I should run into people from India. And they say, I know the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, you're devotee, You're just fanatic, whatever. So, it's not necessarily. So McGrary the Hunter, let's go to McGrary the Hunter. I mean, here's probably, you would think, here's the worst possible candidate for devotional service, right? I mean, who would go into a slaughterhouse to preach to people? Who would go to an NRA convention? Let's use something a little more appropriate. You know what an NRA convention is? I mean, who would preach to the previous governor of Alaska? Don't mention her name. And she would sit in the helicopters. You know this? So you go in the helicopters and shoot at animals. I mean, not even giving animals a chance to run away or shoot back or something like that. So McGrary actually was pretty bad. He was setting these traps out, and they were half killing the animals. And he was taking joy in it. It wasn't only killing them. Just like, actually one interesting thing, I was just in Serbia, and we were staying like in a retreat center. And so I went downstairs to see why the internet didn't work, where the router was. And inside there were hundreds of dead bodies of animals, preserved. Dead body, heads. So it's really horrible. So McGrary, he was half killing these animals and taking joy in it, and that was his family tradition. And so you would think, all right, why don't you preach in the yoga center? Why are you going there? So he goes to McGrary, and he lets the animals go, which riles up McGrary even more. He says, why do you do this? And Narda just knows what to say. Perfect. Like Prabhupada knew what to say in every circumstance. He just said, why are you half killing the animal? Instead of just saying, direct Krishna consciousness, don't you know an animal has a soul, it experiences pain like you and I do, Why don't you become a vegetarian? There's 4 regulative principles. You should chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Instead of saying that, do you have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, McGrary? So instead, he just says, why don't you just kill him? Immediately, why have killed him? He tries to go one step. Son of McGrary can relate to. McGrary says, this is my tradition, it gives me happiness to see himself. And Narada Muni, of course he has mystic powers that helps with the preaching. He doesn't need to pull out his computer and show him some PowerPoints. Isn't it? He doesn't put on the virtual reality glasses. That's what I would do now. I'd have some virtual reality glasses and say, this is your karma. Oh my God. So, McGrary got a chance by Narada Muni's mercy to experience what would have been his karma had he not stopped killing animals. And so Narada Muni, instead of cursing him, he scared the bejesus out of him. And he said, what can I do? You ready to hear? Chant the holy names. Okay, but how am I going to eat? Be vegetarian. No. Krishna will, I'll arrange, Krishna will send all these things. And then, because McGrary was doing this out of fear, he was impelled by fear, or inspired by fear. He started to chant, and his wife actually, just being a chaste hunter's wife. So in those days, even the hunter's wives, they actually followed their husbands nicely. It's interesting. They both sat down on the bank of the river and with a tulsi tree and chanted the holy name. And he became such a great devotee, he wouldn't step on an ant when Narada Muni came back with Parvat Muni. So this is perfect preaching. And Narada knew what to say, when to show up, and to show up. It's amazing. Although it appears, just by accident, it happened. And there's many other examples with Narada Muni. And, another example I can think of is the Ratnagara example, where this guy was a dacoit. Dacoit means robber, thief, murderer, all nice things. And, this actually wasn't Narada Muni, it was the Saptarishis. That the Saptarishis, the 7 great sages, were stopped by this sage who wanted, by this Ratnagara, who wanted to rob him. And they simply said, preached him a little bit, there's your karma. You're going to have to suffer for it. And he said, well, I'm doing this out of love. And they said, well, who do you love? And he said, I love my family. And they said, do they love you back? And he said, yes, they love me like anything. But actually what they did was they loved his money. They did. You see this often, if someone's very rich, it's hard to find real love because the person's going to marry you because of your money. It's natural. So, the 7 sages said, why don't you test your family to see if they love you back? Ask them if they're willing to accept some of your karma. And then he goes to his family members, make a long story short, and they all said, no way. Get back to work, Dad. Or husband. And then he just said, what should I do? And they said, chant Mara. They knew what to teach him because they're being dictated by Krishna. It's amazing, isn't it? If you're a devotee, knows what to say. It's amazing. And sometimes we may think, why is he talking like that? You hear Prabhupada sometimes like smashing people. When I first met Prabhupada, he was giving personally met Prabhupada. He was giving a lecture in the University of Florida in the Plaza of the Americans in Krishna Priyati with you.
Unfortunately, our son's late.
Out away. And Prabhupada was talking about the Purusha avatars. Imagine you're in front of all the students. I was sitting there, and I had just joined the Hare Krishna movement. I didn't know what the difference between a Purusha avatar and a Purusha. It means a person and a Purusha. And Prabhupada was talking. First there was Mahavishnu. And then Mahavishnu breathed out and all the universe. I was thinking, oh my God, what's happening here? And this is so far out. And of course, Prabhupada knew what to say. You may say, this is supposed to be Krishna West. Shouldn't he be talking about, something like you're not the body, or all you need is love, shouldn't he use like we think with our Krishna West, which we've changed the name of to Tulsi West now. No, Tulsi Midnight. So anyway, Should we, shouldn't Prabhupada adjust his preaching? Prabhupada knew exactly what to say, and it was effective. And you see this, And another reason it's effective is because of the purity. Like Prabhupada said, purity is the force. Because Prabhupada could say something, and because the saffron dust particles of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are within the sound vibration coming from Prabhupada's mouth, Bhavanti Vritkarna reciting the Katha, Joshanat Ashu, Apavarga Varga, it goes from the ear to the heart, and it actually wakens up the heart. So that's really what the pure devotee does. I mean, externally he's saying something, but internally there's something that wakens up the heart. And, that was also my experience. I mean, I actually can relate my experience again, not the other details, but first of all, I understand that I was able to hear Prabhupada on the radio because I was ready for it. Because I was actually praying to Krishna internally. I didn't tell anybody about it. But I was praying to Krishna internally, please show me who you are. And that's why I heard Prabhupada. And as soon as I heard Prabhupada, it was the purity that woke me up. So that's really the point. Anyway, so there's so many other examples of how pure devotees are guided by Krishna within the heart that we can go through, like Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadev Goswami, right? Shukadev Goswami just wandering, running naked. He was naked, but his nakedness was not like a rainbow festival or something like that. He was naked because he was detached from this world. And even when he ran by girls who were bathing, they didn't get disturbed because they could see he was completely transcendental personality. But Shukadev Goswami knew where to go. It's not that he got a phone call on his mobile phone, Hey, Parikshit Maharaj is getting ready to leave this world. He's sort of wondering what's his purpose at the time of death. This is a Amber Alert or whatever. Isn't it? It's not that you got a phone call. I mean, you got a phone call in the heart. So Krishna said, go there immediately. And he shows up right at the right moment. When Parikshit Maharaj is asking, what's the purpose of the time of death? And what's the purpose of life? And all the other sages, well, maybe like this, maybe like that. Shukadev comes, sits down, tells him the truth, knows exactly what to say. So this is the point. So that's really what we mean by causeless mercy, that the Lord and his pure devotees had no material motive. Something like ahaitukiya pratyata, that verse, Savaitam Sam Parodama, Yato Bhakti Yogas. Ahaitukiya pratyata yatma suprasidate. Ahaituki means without cause. And a pratyata means it doesn't stop under any circumstances. So that's pure devotional service. So, anyway, so that's causeless mercy. That is, anyway. That's what causes mercy. Yes, any questions or comments?
I was wondering about the story about the Shakta which used to tell him how this man chanted Mara.
Mara. We do know the story. That actually, Ratnagara really got, let's say, materially frustrated when he heard that his wife and children really didn't love him. That their love was for his money. And he said, what should I do? And they said to him, first of all, you chant Ram's name, but he says, I can't do that. I'm just not pious enough. I have no attraction for the holy name. So they tricked him into chanting Mara, and Mara became Ram. That's a trick. And you go, Mara, 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 Ram, 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 Mara, 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 Ram, Ram, Ram. Right? So that's the story. So they knew what to say. The perfect intelligence. The pure devotee has perfect intelligence. He or she knows what to say at the right moment. I mean, Prabhupada was so intelligent, not only, with preaching Krishna consciousness, but even politically. Prabhupada was intelligent, like with this Mr. Nair, when the devotees had actually negated the contract with Mr. Nair, and Mr. Nair came to me, Prabhupada. Prabhupada understood how to put Mr. Nair and his guru to sleep. I'm not going to have to tell the whole story. You know, he probably yawned at the right moment, and Mr. Nair said, "You're tired," and Prabhupada said, "Yes, I'm tired. Go to let's all go to sleep." He went to sleep. Prabhupada was able to separate Mr. Nair from his guru, and basically arrange, I'm not going to say cheat Mr. Nair, but arrange to take back or sign the contract again. So this pure devotee has perfect discrimination according to time, place. Expert, actually one of the qualities of pure devotee is expert judge according to time, place, and circumstance. So, on that happy note, all glory